Okay, before I even start any of this, I do kind of want to point out something I missed. As a show of trust, I have for you a show of trust. Yeah, these were in the last update and I completely glossed over them. I apologize for that. Hello, it's Striker Joe, and welcome to update 2.3.0, and in this update we have a lot, and I mean a lot of new stuff. Not the least of which I'm staring directly at, and we'll get to that later. Also, don't worry too much about this ladder, this is just in case I'm needed. So let's just jump into it, shall we? Let me actually literally jump into it. So we have these bulkhead doors, which they're pretty good. They provide a decent amount of armor, but they're not actually structurally sound or anything. When you try to open them, they have this really neat opening animation though. On top of this, if we look at this, we now have turning thrusters, and they're not perfect. They're not necessarily going to hit anything because of that, just like the tendency that it's like it's not going to aim too far. It's basically 2.5 to 5 degree of the target rotation. Yeah, that's all you get. So if I were to just fire this missile, which I think it's on 5? No, I think it's 1. So if I fire it, the tail, like, you can see the thruster working, but it's going to overshoot. Yep. That almost hit. But it couldn't make it. They also will use a percentage of fuel. I have it set to 100%, so it'll use all of the fuel if it needs to steer, because it's only one. This one is just 25% because I just added an extra fuel tank for it. This one, in combination with a fin, it'll actually work just fine. If I just fire number 5, you can see it's able to aim pretty well. So yeah, and yeah, now I want to point out, the lifetime of this is 20 seconds, no regulator. With a regulator, this one is 40 seconds, so basically regulators now amount to about double what they used to. That's a pretty welcome change. Now here, I'm going to demonstrate that missiles now have separate firing modes. So I'm clicking this once. I fire one missile, and I can fire anytime. And this one, I'm clicking once. I'm even deselecting. It's still firing. So basically there's a mode in this. And so this one's on firing mode, salvo. We have continuous, salvo, and then we have full salvo. The difference between salvo and full salvo is that full salvo needs it to all be full, while salvo will fire any missiles it has until it runs out. So if I try to fire this again, it's not fully loaded even though it has stuff in there, versus this one, which I'd be able to start another firing sequence even if I had, it's like I can still like fire more salvos basically, even if it's not fully reloaded. Oh, and before I forget, Cram Cannons now can have fire in high arcs as well as the APS, although for some reason this one does not want to fire. Either way, this is a welcome addition. It actually confused me why the APS got the high arc setting but not the cram. So here it is. Now we have these things, which I do not want to butcher the name of, so I will have them nameless, basically. These are basically more expensive, and slightly stronger. They're more expensive than their wood equivalents, and they're only slightly stronger, so I don't really know. They have a significant increase to armor compared to wood, though. Wood has an armor of 3, and these have an armor of 5, so I guess that's significant. 175 to 180. Wood blocks are just stronger. Okay, well, either way, we have like all these different shapes, and I have like blocks that to help you see like the shapes. These we have ramps that will extend to like part way into blocks, but they don't actually connect. So yeah, just want to point that out. Hiding behind them are all the new rudder pieces. What these do is they're basically like how airplanes have like wings and they provide lift. Well, not necessarily, but like think of it like the tail fin of an airplane, or the rudder of an actual ship. These panels will provide a turning force based on the direction water flows across them, and that can be used to steer the ship. Basically, it's a rudder. If you set up like a spin block, you can actually like steer it, and I'm going to demonstrate that. So like this. So when I'm trying to steer, it's actually turning this. Now obviously if you want it to be more responsive, you could make it like tighter. But yeah, like if you want to like have AI control this and more precisely, kind of like a player might, like this, then you will want to put a PID on the AI, and you want to max all the fields out except for I think, and it'll go back and forth, and it'll try to keep it straight, but it'll like maintain the right amount of angle just because of like the duty cycle, but it'll always like vibrate slightly. So yeah. Anyway, it looks like this steam engine's been running pretty high for a while. It's actually on high power mode, and it has this shield, which is also helping. So yeah, if I was to just kind of drop this thing, I'm not exactly going to be able to like drive off, but at least this way I can demonstrate. If I hold T, this rotor starts to spin up. It's actually kind of slow. They have a certain amount of speed, and it takes time for them to reach their top speed. And on top of that, you can tell the steam engine slowed down because the weight of all the turbine is now on the engine. Like it's no longer like running without it. Something I want to point out. These, like, you do want an engine powerful enough that even if you like use all the power, it still rotates fast enough. But you're going to have special systems in place to actually turn it off. So like, I have like a system where it releases pressure and then waits to drop its shield. And so that should happen any moment now, like about 15 seconds. And of course the engine is going to rev up a ridiculous amount. And there we go, it's going to gain a ton of speed, but since it's been dropping pressure, it's not anywhere close to running too far. Anyway. So basically the way it works is you have a steam engine. It's a rotary steam engine with pistons and everything. This is kind of important. It's like you always want it like this. We now have axis shifting gears and everything. Before I get too much into detail, engine shafts also, you can have engine shaft bearings. And basically engine shaft bearings make it more sturdy but heavier. And as a result, it's slower to spool up, but you can reach a higher speed. The same thing applies for cased cranked parts. These, it also goes for this. A cased crank will easily increase your weight allowance. I don't know if they add extra weight compared to a regular crank. I guess I have to assume they do. Either way, this one I wanted to be able to spool up quickly, so it has none of that supporting stuff, circuitry. And it's just I had to tinker with this for a while before it was ready. And yeah, and it's going to take a while for it to bleed off that excess power. But either way, it doesn't actually affect this because its rotation speed winds up being about the same. So yeah, so basically, coming from the engine shaft, you want to route it directly into a shaft reduction gear. You probably will have to use axis shifting gears if you want the engine, the turbines, to be lower. Basically, you want the engine shaft going into a shaft reduction gear, and that'll allow the thing to start spinning. After that, you just have to use propeller shafts. However, I think it's very important to note that these all have a base time to go to max speed. So this is 11 seconds, but right now it's 8.25 seconds because you get a bonus if you have connect reduction gears together with propeller shafts down the chain. The more of these you have, the more you have. I think it has diminishing returns though. So past 2, you'll get a smaller bonus, and it'll just keep going that way. And then you can use a 2-meter sealed shaft. It looks like this, but they don't actually have anything solid here. So you can use this to connect to the outside, and these would be connected. This is actually a 3x metal beam, and I can actually, well, I could remove this. In fact, I will. It's still connected even though there's actually nothing here. So you can use this 2-meter sealed propeller shaft to make it fit. Come out of a flat space. Like this. And then you just continue outwards until you can place your propeller. And there you go. Unfortunately, you can't split off of the steam engine and have multiple turbines. I'm sure there is a way to do that. I'm sure that it's possible to program that, but it would require a bit of coding. Anyway, the engine. Yep. I think it's just about settling at this point. Anyway, I'm quite satisfied with this. So yeah. Also, I would demonstrate this right now, but I have a vehicle specifically for that. I'm just gonna. Oh, it keeps the setting. That's good. Oh, never mind, it doesn't. As soon as I leave the ship, it lost it. Oh well. But yeah, that's what happens when you dogcraft. So I'm just going to spawn something. This is not effective at all. I'm just going to say, if I was to make an actual ship, it would be a lot more complicated. But it's going to be prototypes. And they have a speedboat. If I was just to kind of show you what's going on under the hood, I have a steam boiling chamber and then 3 steam engines, and they all go in through their assemblies and they exit into a propeller. And then I have a large rudder, just a single large rudder for steering, which works fine. The reason why it's so small, you might see in the comments. Like, I might tell you why I didn't go crazy with the rudder in the comments, but odds are it's probably not even going to be a concern for you. It's probably going to be fixed by now. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to just start going. Now, of course, not all these engines are spooled up, so the one on the left and the one on the right are a little behind because it kind of, for some reason, the one on the right always draws more power, but it's not going to be long before it balances. And I can steer using this rudder. And obviously, same rules apply that I mentioned earlier. So I'm like able to like steer this without any problem. And obviously, like with the AI, it's going to be doing something like this if you use the PID to kind of choke it. So yeah, anyway, I'm quite happy about this, honestly. So yeah, anyway, I timed that right. And I can't get back on. That's not what I intended, but okay. Anyway. What's this? Oh. What's this? From the depths is calling to me. I must go, my people need me.